Ladies and gentlemen, let me ask you something. Have you ever walked into a room and immediately felt the energy change? Power is peace, not control, not fear, not dominance. Real power doesn't demand to be seen, doesn't need to be loud, and doesn't announce itself in every room it enters. It's the quiet confidence of someone who doesn't flinch when others raise their voices. It's the calm in your breath when chaos surrounds you, and the restraint in your silence when provoked. The most powerful people are not the ones who force others to listen. They are the ones who choose when to speak, and even more critically, when not to. There's a common misconception that being powerful means being aggressive, intimidating, or in control of others. That's surface level. That's insecurity dressed as strength. True power is emotional control. It's the ability to be unshaken in the face of disrespect. It's looking at someone trying to provoke you and deciding consciously that their energy will not disturb your inner world. That decision, that self-discipline, is peace, and it's power in its purest form. Being unbothered doesn't mean you don't care. It means you choose not to let outside noise take command of your inner state. When someone tries to throw you off balance and you don't take the bait, when you keep your tone even, your expression neutral, and your thoughts focused, that's not weakness, that's dominance over the self. And the self is the only battlefield that truly matters, because if you can't govern your emotions, someone else will. If your peace is easily stolen, you'll spend your life reacting rather than leading. There's strength in walking away from arguments you could easily win. There's power in not defending yourself when someone's opinion is irrelevant to your path. You do not need to explain your value to those who are committed to misunderstanding you. You do not need to prove anything to those who are threatened by your presence. What they think of you is none of your business. What you protect is your peace, and that is your real strength. People often mistake reaction for strength. They believe that to respond is to fight back, to reclaim ground, but reaction gives power away. The moment you let someone's words dictate your emotions, you've handed over your peace for the price of pride. That's not power. That's vulnerability disguised as defense. True power is in the pause. It's in the moment you feel the anger rise and choose to breathe instead of break. It's the inner knowing that someone else's chaos doesn't require your participation. Power is not in dominating others. It's in not needing to. It's the ease in your body when you know who you are. It's the mental discipline to walk into any space, hear opinions, feel judgment, even face disrespect, and remain centered. When you operate from that place, you are unshakable, not because you control everything, but because you don't need to. The peace within you becomes your shield. Your calm presence becomes your statement. You begin to see things differently. That sarcastic comment, it no longer hits. That cold glance, you meet it with warmth or nothing at all. You realize that people project what they carry, and not all of it belongs to you. The way they treat you says more about them than it does about you, and so you detach, you observe without absorbing, you listen without being moved, not because you're numb, but because you're in control. And control over self is the highest form of power anyone can possess, the kind that can't be taken, bought, or broken. It's not flashy, it's not loud, but it's felt, it's respected, and it's rare. When you start to live this way, anchored, quiet, calm, something changes. People sense it. They either grow uncomfortable with your unshakable energy or drawn to it, but either way, you don't waver. You're no longer looking for validation in reactions. You're no longer chasing approval. You've realized that nothing outside you can disturb what you've built within. Power isn't about how you make others feel about you. It's how you make yourself feel in the presence of others. And when your peace becomes untouchable, when your inner world is no longer dictated by outer noise, that's when you've truly understood what it means to be powerful. Because power, when it's real, feels like peace. Would you like this in a voiceover script format, visual quote cards, or extended further into an article or book chapter? Don't personalize poison. Written in a fluid, emotionally resonant tone without subheadings or a conclusion. Not everything thrown at you is meant for you to catch, and not everything said to you is yours to carry. One of the greatest lessons in emotional strength is learning not to personalize poison. Those words, attitudes, and actions laced with bitterness, judgment, or cruelty. It's natural to absorb what's directed at us, to question ourselves when someone is unkind, or to take offense when someone attacks our character. But more often than not, what people throw at you is simply a reflection of what they are battling inside. Their words are mirrors, not truths, and once you understand that, you begin to protect your spirit in ways that no external force can penetrate. People project pain. Hurt people. It's more than a cliche, it's a pattern. Someone filled with insecurity will try to shrink your confidence. Someone who resents their own life may try to mock your progress. And someone who is threatened by your growth will often disguise that fear as criticism. If you take that personally, if you internalize it, you begin to alter your self-worth to match their dysfunction. You allow their inner poison to become your emotional burden, and that is not your responsibility. When someone attacks your character or tries to diminish your light, it's rarely about you. It's about what you represent to them. Maybe your confidence reminds them of what they lack. Maybe your presence shines a light on the parts of themselves they haven't healed. Maybe your refusal to play small makes them feel exposed, but none of that is your fault, and none of it should be your weight to carry. You are not required to dim your light just because someone else squints in your brightness. The most powerful shift you can make is to stop asking, "Why are they doing this to me?" and instead ask, "What must they be dealing with to act this way?" That simple reframe takes you out of the role of victim and places you in the position of emotional authority. You no longer absorb the toxin, you examine it from a distance. You begin to see their behavior for what it is, a cry, a wound, a weakness, not a reflection of your value. Sometimes it's subtle, a passive-aggressive comment, a look of disapproval, a tone that undermines you. Other times it's direct, a cruel insult, a cold rejection, a calculated attempt to make you doubt yourself. Either way, the choice is always yours. You can inhale that poison and let it shape your identity, or you can see it for what it is and let it pass through you without sticking. You don't have to engage with every insult. You don't have to react to every jab. Silence can be a fortress. Detachment can be armor. Just because they're loud doesn't mean they're right, and just because they're close doesn't mean they're credible. Not personalizing the poison doesn't mean you become numb or ignore every critique. It means you learn the difference between feedback and projection. Feedback helps you grow. Projection aims to make you shrink. Feedback comes from love or respect. Projection comes from fear or ego. When someone offers you perspective from a place of genuine care, you listen. When someone lashes out from a place of pain, you release it. Not because you're better, but because you're aware. It takes discipline to not react. It takes clarity to not absorb, and it takes confidence to know who you are so completely that no one's poisoned opinion can alter your internal compass. But that's the work, that's emotional maturity, that's what keeps you free when others are tangled in their own bitterness. So when the poison comes, and it will, pause before you personalize it. Ask yourself if what you're feeling is truth or just someone else's unresolved pain. Ask yourself if this energy belongs to you, or if you're just the nearest target for someone who hasn't learned how to carry their own wounds. You'll be surprised how often it has nothing to do with you. Let them speak, let them twist, let them judge, but you stay rooted. You don't need to drink from their cup. You don't need to digest their venom. Not every invitation to conflict is worth your RSVP. Protect your mind like it's sacred ground, because it is. And once you stop making other people's poison personal, you'll find a new kind of peace, one that no one can touch. Let me know if you'd like this edited into a spoken word style, turned into a voiceover, or visual content. Silence is a superpower, written in a fluid, emotionally expressive tone without subheadings or a conclusion, as requested. Silence is often misunderstood. It's mistaken for weakness, for passivity, for submission. But those who truly know its value understand that silence is not the absence of voice, it's the presence of power. It's not that you have nothing to say, it's that you've mastered the art of choosing when to speak and when to hold your fire. That choice alone sets the strong apart from the reactive. There is something unshakable about a person who doesn't rush to defend themselves, when they are insulted and they don't flinch, when they are pushed and they don't push back with equal force. That stillness, that calm refusal to be pulled into chaos, creates a presence that is louder than words, because silence, when used with intention, commands more attention than noise ever could. It causes people to pause, to wonder, to second, guess themselves. And in that moment of silence, you've taken control, without even raising your voice. People who rely on manipulation or control don't know how to handle silence. They depend on reaction. They poke and prod, waiting for you to crack, to lash out, to fall apart. Your silence denies them that satisfaction. It starves the drama. It ends the conversation without saying a word, and that right there is power. Not everything deserves a response. Not everyone deserves an explanation. There is strength in restraint. Silence protects your energy. Every time you respond out of emotion, you hand someone a piece of your peace. You give them access to your internal state, and some people don't deserve to know what affects you. Some people earn nothing from you, not your anger, not your sadness, not even your attention. Let them wonder. Let them sit with the echo of their own behavior. Your silence forces them to face themselves. It also gives you clarity. In silence, you hear your own thoughts more clearly. You feel what's real instead of reacting to what's loud. You give yourself time to observe, to process, to choose. You start responding instead of reacting. And that shift changes everything. You see what others miss because they're too busy shouting. You notice patterns, intentions, energy. Silence sharpens your intuition. It heightens your awareness. It turns your mind into a fortress instead of a battlefield. People fear silence because it reveals truth. It removes distraction. It forces discomfort into the open. But the ones who can sit with it embrace it and use it with precision. They have the upper hand in any room. When you no longer feel the need to prove your point, justify your choices, or argue with those committed to misunderstanding you, you win a different kind of freedom. You learn that silence is not just about holding your tongue, it's about knowing your worth. And sometimes silence is the loudest protest. It's a statement. It says, "You don't control me." It says, "This is beneath my attention." It says, "You will not pull me into your chaos." That kind of silence disrupts people. It disarms egos. It shifts the balance of power, and it reminds the world that dignity doesn't shout. It simply stands tall and waits. There's also silence in strength. The strength of walking away without slamming the door. The strength of not retaliating when you've been wronged. The strength of healing quietly, growing privately, moving on without an announcement. The strength of knowing your value so deeply that you don't need to scream it from rooftops to be heard. You just are, and that quiet confidence becomes your presence. You begin to understand that people who provoke you are often trying to anchor you to their level. They want noise because that's where they thrive. But when you stay silent, you become unreachable. They can't touch what they can't trigger. They can't influence what doesn't react. Your silence becomes a boundary they cannot cross. So, in a world addicted to noise, silence becomes your rebellion. In a world desperate for attention, your stillness becomes your edge. And in moments when words fail, or when they'll only add fuel to fire, silence says everything that needs to be said. You don't have to shout to be heard. You don't have to fight to prove your worth. Sometimes the most powerful move you can make is to say nothing at all, and watch how loudly your silence speaks. Let me know if you'd like this adapted for a social post, podcast narration, or presentation. Train your inner guard, written in a reflective and emotionally resonant tone without subheadings or a conclusion. Every day you're met with noise, opinions, criticisms, energy, some positive, some poisonous. And every day you have a choice, let it in or shut it out. The truth is, not everything that reaches you deserves to enter you. That's why you must train your inner guard, the mental gatekeeper that filters the world before it reaches your core. Because if you don't guard your mind, your emotions, your self-belief, someone else will shape them for you. Training your inner guard means building the discipline to protect your peace, your thoughts, and your identity. It's not about becoming cold or distant. It's about being deliberate, being intentional. You don't just allow anything or anyone to disturb your internal climate. You learn to separate what's helpful from what's harmful, what's true from what's noise, and what deserves your focus from what deserves your silence. Not everyone who speaks to you speaks from clarity. People speak from wounds, from fear, from ego. If you absorb everything, you begin to internalize their chaos as your own. Your inner guard steps in to say, "Not today." It pauses before you react. It questions before you absorb. It creates distance between what is said and what is accepted. That pause is where your power lies. Strength isn't just physical. Emotional resilience is a skill, one that takes training, repetition, awareness. Just like you don't expect a body to stay strong without movement, you can't expect your mind to stay solid without effort. The more you challenge it, the more you grow. You catch your thoughts before they spiral. You reframe rejection before it becomes self-doubt. You question your impulses instead of obeying them. That's how the guard sharpens. You will be tested. Someone will say something that cuts. Someone will push a boundary. Someone will make you feel like you're not enough. And in that moment, your inner guard either lets the blow land or blocks it with the truth you've built. You remind yourself, "This is not about me." You repeat, "I know who I am." You choose not to let a passing storm become your permanent weather. That is protection. That is power. Training your inner guard also means developing emotional discipline. It means realizing that not every feeling needs to be acted on. Not every trigger deserves a response. You learn to sit with discomfort, to hear painful things and stay calm, to be around difficult people and remain unshaken. You start to understand that control doesn't mean suppression, it means precision. You still feel everything, you just don't hand over the steering wheel to every emotion that rises. Boundaries are part of the training, not the kind you announce with a social media post, but the kind you enforce in silence. You limit access, you protect your time, you guard your energy like it's sacred, because it is. Not everyone gets to be close. Not everyone earns the right to influence you. And when someone crosses a line, you don't have to shout. You don't even need to explain. You just act. That quiet enforcement, that's your inner guard doing its job. There's also mental conditioning in what you feed your mind, what you watch, what you read, who you surround yourself with. If your environment is toxic, your guard weakens. If you're constantly absorbing negativity, your defenses dull. Training the guard means being conscious of what enters your space. It means filling your mind with strength, with truth, with clarity, so that when the chaos comes, you're not scrambling to remember who you are. And let's be honest, it takes time. You don't train overnight. You stumble, you react, you let the wrong things in, but every time you catch yourself, you get better. Every time you reset, you reinforce the gate. Eventually, your guard becomes automatic. You walk into rooms and know what to ignore. You hear criticism and know what's projection. You feel conflict and stay composed. People start to wonder how you're so unaffected. The answer, you've trained for this. Your mind is your home. Your energy is your currency. Your peace is your responsibility. No one else will guard it for you. So don't wait for someone to respect your space. Teach them by how you protect it. Your inner guard isn't just defense, it's alignment. It reminds you, in every moment, that you have the final say in what shapes you. Let me know if you'd like this adapted into a speech, video narration, or an ebook format. Shift your focus. Written in a powerful and emotionally grounded tone, without subheadings or conclusion, there comes a point when staring at what's broken no longer serves you. When repeating the pain on loop only deepens the wound. When focusing on what's missing blinds you to everything that's still standing. In those moments, what you need is not more strength, not more time, not even more answers. You need a shift in focus. Because where your attention goes, your energy flows, and energy is too precious to keep wasting on what cannot be changed. Life will always offer you something to complain about, something to fear, something to regret. That's not a flaw, it's part of being human. But what separates people who rise from those who stay stuck is where they choose to place their mental spotlight. You can fixate on the problem or redirect to the possibility. You can obsess over the past or invest in what's still within reach. The pain might not be your choice, but your focus always is. What you focus on grows. Focus on your doubts and they multiply. Focus on your flaws and they overshadow your strengths. But focus on progress, no matter how small, and you start to feel momentum. Focus on gratitude and suddenly, what you have feels like enough. The shift is subtle but powerful. It doesn't require a life overhaul. Just a new lens, a decision to see through clarity instead of fear, through growth instead of lack. Your mind is like a camera. You can point it anywhere, and if all you ever zoom in on are the disappointments, the rejections, the unfairness, you'll create a reality built entirely on limitation. But shift the lens. Shift it to resilience, to lessons, to what you've overcome. And you begin to reclaim your power. It doesn't mean pretending everything's fine. It means choosing what gets to live rent-free in your thoughts. Not every hard moment deserves your full attention. Some things need to be acknowledged and then left behind. People often stay stuck not because they're weak, but because they're fixated. They're looking so hard at the closed door that they don't even notice the one slightly open just to the left. They keep replaying what hurt them instead of what healed them. They seek answers from the same sources that gave them confusion. But healing begins when you decide that not everything deserves your focus, that your peace is worth more than your need to understand what already happened. Sometimes you just have to stop watering the weeds. You have to redirect your gaze to what uplifts, to what fuels your purpose. That doesn't mean the pain vanishes, but it loses its grip. You stop feeding it with attention, and what you feed lives, what you starve fades. Focus can be the difference between spiraling and rising, between staying hurt and getting stronger, between being stuck in a season and stepping into your next one. You begin to realize that some battles are won not by fighting harder, but by turning away, by refusing to engage, by protecting your vision so fiercely that no distraction, no drama, no doubt can steal it. Shifting focus is an act of maturity. It says, I can feel pain, but I don't have to live in it. I can carry memories, but I don't have to be ruled by them. I can acknowledge what went wrong and still choose to look toward what's right. It's not always easy. Sometimes your focus will wander. Sometimes the past will try to pull you back in. Sometimes the fear will be louder than the faith. That's normal, but every time you notice it, every time you pull yourself back to what matters, you get stronger. You train your mind to be your ally, not your saboteur. You stop being a prisoner of your thoughts and start becoming the architect of your reality. You are not helpless. You are not without options. You just need to realign your vision. Start seeing what's working. Start noticing who stayed. Start focusing on what you can control, no matter how small it feels. Momentum builds in inches, not miles, but it builds, and once it starts, it changes everything. You get one mind, one chance to tell yourself the right story. Don't waste it replaying the wrong one. The past doesn't get to keep you. The fear doesn't get to lead you. You decide, and it starts with what you choose to see. So shift your focus. The future is waiting on the other side of your attention. If you'd like this piece turned into a speech, short video script, or quote carousel, I can adapt it further. Detach with grace. Written in a fluid, emotionally resonant tone, without subheadings or conclusion, as requested. Detachment doesn't mean you stop caring. It doesn't mean you walk away bitter, cold, or hardened. Detachment means you've chosen peace over chaos, clarity over confusion, and self-respect over trying to force something that no longer aligns with your soul. To detach with grace is to honor what something meant without letting it define what comes next. It's knowing when to hold on, and more importantly, when to let go with dignity. We often stay entangled in people, memories, or situations out of habit, fear, or guilt. We replay conversations, hoping for different endings. We cling to what once was, ignoring what is. But life keeps whispering, urging us to move forward. And the longer we ignore that voice, the louder the discomfort becomes. Detaching doesn't happen in a single moment. It's a process of slowly loosening the emotional grip. It's choosing to stop feeding something that no longer feeds you. There's a quiet strength in letting go without making a scene, in walking away not because you hate someone, but because you love yourself enough to protect your energy. Graceful detachment is not about proving a point. It's not about dramatic exits or public declarations. It's the calm decision to no longer chase validation, to no longer beg for clarity, to no longer participate in the same cycle expecting a different result. You learn that closure isn't something you're always given. Sometimes you're the one who has to give it to yourself. You don't need the other person to apologize, explain, or agree. You make peace with what they can't give you. You accept what they couldn't be, and then gently, but firmly, you create space. You stop checking in. You stop waiting. You stop wondering, not because it doesn't matter, but because you finally matter to yourself more. Detaching with grace also means not trying to control how others remember you. You won't always get to tell your side of the story. You won't always be understood, and that's okay. You don't have to carry the burden of proving your worth. Your peace is not dependent on their perception. The right people will feel your absence, even if you leave in silence, and if they don't, that silence becomes your answer. There's wisdom in knowing that everything has a season. Some people come into your life to teach you, to challenge you, to awaken parts of yourself you didn't know existed. But not everyone is meant to stay. Not every chapter needs to be dragged into the next. Detachment is the art of allowing things to be what they were, without turning them into what they're not. You stop rewriting the story and begin writing your own. It takes courage to detach, to stop hoping they'll change, to stop explaining your boundaries, to stop overextending yourself for crumbs of affection or approval. Graceful detachment isn't passive. It's one of the most powerful acts of self-alignment. It says, I can love you and still walk away. It says I can appreciate the good times and still know this isn't good for me anymore. It's not fueled by anger or resentment. It's fueled by truth. Sometimes the hardest thing to do is accept that the story you wanted so badly is not the story you're meant to live. And still you rise, still you smile softly and take the next step. You don't rush, you don't force, you just let go with open hands. You trust that what's ahead will bring more alignment, more peace, more honesty. Because when you stop fighting for what doesn't fit, you make room for what finally does. Detachment with grace allows you to walk away from what disturbs your inner peace without needing revenge, without needing validation, without needing to be right. You stop explaining yourself to those committed to misunderstanding you. You stop participating in dynamics that drain you. You simply choose peace, and that peace becomes your power. Letting go isn't failure. It's freedom. It's choosing to honor your growth over your attachment, to release the weight that was never yours to carry, to finally come home to yourself. Not everyone will understand. Not everyone will support the path you choose. But the beauty is, you don't need them to. Detaching with grace means you're no longer trying to convince anyone to stay, to love you better, or to see your worth. You already know it. And in that quiet, graceful exit, you reclaim everything that was waiting for you all along. Your strength, your clarity, your peace.